Hey guys, welcome back to another monthly update from MALEDICTOR. Jump on into it. First off, we've got E1M4 progress. Now, unfortunately, it's not as much progress as I wanted to have because the next point, we've got ate up a lot of time this month. You can see we expanded some rooms a little bit. I added some breakable windows into the side here for a little bit of variation in the level flow paths. Not much. It's nothing groundbreaking or anything, but some little optional stuff. I think I spruced up the interior of the church a little bit. So some small work here, but it's still progress. But bigger progress is the SMG cultist. We got the SMG cultist into the game, so we've got another enemy type now. And the reason why they take so long, not because of the coding, I think it took me about a day to put the coding in for the SMG cultist, and that was because, well, future points will show, I decided to spruce that up a little bit and touch up some other things while I was at it. So the reason why these sprites take so long is because you need a direction for pretty much everything. So there's 8 directions. For an idle, you need 1 sprite for just standing and facing every direction. And then you need 4 for walking animations for each direction. And so that slows things down a lot. It's a lot of work, and I hate doing it, but it's got to get done. So yeah, that ate up a little bit more time than I would have liked, but it kind of always does. And I will happily delay E1M4 a little bit if that means getting another enemy into the game. So once the enemy's in, they're in. So that was good progress. And speaking of enemies, I went and resized them. So what I mean by that is you can see we got our standard pistol cultist here, who is a little bit more narrow than the melee cultist. And then you've got your shotgun cultist, who is a wide boy and a tall boy. And then you've got the submachine gun cultist, who is a little bit taller than the pistol cultist, but is also a little bit more narrow. So I think this will kind of give the enemies a little bit more identity and should add a little bit more variety into the gameplay. Now, I might exaggerate these a little bit more as we go. Now, we'll have to see. I'm going to be putting out the next alpha test for this game pretty soon, so one of the big focuses for that is going to be the enemies. So I'm going to be able to get a lot of feedback on how they feel to fight, how the balance is, and just how they look in general. So that'll be good, and that'll be... It won't be good for me. I have a feeling this is going to be a lot of work after this alpha, but it'll be good feedback at the very least, and a lot of progress on the enemies made. Next, removed bloat from the main enemy blueprint. This one's really big, and I'm very happy about this. So, going to the blueprints for the enemies, we've got our main enemy blueprint, which, if you look at it, it's pretty huge. And so this is code that every enemy in the game will use, but it's not necessarily... Before, it wasn't what they strictly needed. So what I mean by that is if we go here and we've got attack events, fire projectile, melee attack, and hit scan attack. The flowcharts for these, so all the code for every one of these was included in the main enemy blueprint before. Now that means that every enemy could access that, which also means that the overall blueprint was larger. So you would have, melee enemies who would also know how to fire projectile and do a hit scan attack, even though that was completely unnecessary. And the problem with that is that is a lot of extra code that is getting piled onto every single instance of that enemy. They don't need all of it. So I went and you can see I took that out. Then I went into the individual enemies and I added that code in for them. So now the enemies should only have code that they specifically need. So the overall enemy blueprint, the exception of this grenade throw, which I might in the muzzle flash. I don't know. There's still more that I can do. I can still optimize this further. For now, it is significantly better than it was. It used to go down to like all the way down here. Be like, you can see this huge gap here. That used to be completely occupied, so managed to size that down a good bit, which means that the enemies now are going to be a little bit more efficient in terms of the blueprint size, so they've got a lot less code, which means that they work a little bit better. And going next into increased efficiency in enemy behavior trees, it's also related. I don't know how much you'll be able to really get out of this. This is just the code for a melee or for a hit scan attack. So one of the problems that I was running into before was I was getting some weird timings on things where things were it just looked like a visual glitch to me, where a sprite's animation, like an enemy animation, would start to replay when it shouldn't. And I found the reason for that was that I was relying on delays. So I was relying on timing things. And, you know, timing is good for certain things, but when you start building in delays, so you start delaying code between two different sets of code, or, you know, like 0.6 seconds here, and now this code has a certain amount of time to get that done before the 0.6 seconds runs out, and then the code ends or something. Now that can start to get mistimed. So instead, I decided to go for something a little bit more robust, and now I'm running this based off of a Boolean check, so it's an on-off switch, and I just have a timer set to check that switch. So this guarantees that code is finishing completely, and it's checking often enough that it should be just fine, and it shouldn't get any real mistiming. So this way, it's a lot more efficient, and this way I know that code is finishing execution. So everything's a lot more consistent now. And, you know, this, as much as I wish I could say that this is a big brain solution for me, really it's just a result of me not knowing what I was doing before. I say that like I know what I'm doing now, but you know, it was just a product of inexperience before. So now it's a lot better and a lot more kind of how it should be. So that's one of the little bits of, you know, doing this as I'm learning it. There's some growing pains where I start to learn more efficient systems and better systems, so then I have to go back and kind of rewrite old systems. But now the benefit of all of this is that now it used to be that if I had projectile enemies, and most enemies in the game that are ranged are going to be projectile based, they all had to kind of have their own system, or they all had to kind of follow the same system. So I would have to like make exceptions for certain enemies. So if I wanted to have somebody that just fired one projectile and that was it, then they would also have to, I would have to make that code work in the same line of code that a shotgunner who spawns multiple projectiles at the same time would work. And then I would also have to make those two instances work in something like, say, an enemy firing full auto or firing in a burst. So then that was also extra bloat. So like a burst fire enemy would have the same amount of code as the shotgunner enemy, even though they'll never use a shotgun. So this way, I'm able to code enemies specifically for themselves. So now I don't have to worry about other existing systems. And now the enemies can be a lot more unique, and they can do things that might have been restricted before. So now everything is going to work a lot better here. So I'm really happy about this change. Except more sounds. It just always having to build out more sounds for basically everything. You need a lot of variety for things like that. So got more sounds in. So the Pursuit of Truth radio show. So I haven't gotten it completely in the game yet because I have to voice it. I got the script written for everything, and then I got sick as soon as I was going to voice it. So my voice got all messed up, and it still is, unfortunately. I wanted to be able to get it voiced and everything, put it completely in the game so I could show it to you guys for this update, but unfortunately, that's just not how it works. My voice might sound kind of normal right now, but if I try to raise it at all or get, a little loud, like this, this is the best I can do with my voice the way it is right now. So I'm a little limited with that, unfortunately. So hopefully it won't be too much longer. I should be able to get the Pursuit of Truth radio show done. What it is how we've got the Sinister Spirits radio show, and that's more like ghost stories and creature features and things. This one's going to be a lot more limited. I'm planning on maybe using this show 1, maybe 2 more times. I don't know. And that's 2 more times across the entire game, not just episode 1. 1, because it might be a little grating, I'm not sure. But 2, it's difficult to make. Pursuit of Truth radio show is a conspiracy theory parody radio show that goes over real world conspiracy theories that turned out to be true. And I before anyone's too worried about that, I am trying to restrict that outside of recent memory. So kind of older conspiracies. I don't want to get into anything too recent that might be a little grating and annoying for some people to have to listen to. So we're going old. So this one goes over Operation Northwoods, which if you don't know about it, then I would say hold off on looking into it before the show. It's pretty interesting, and I also feel like I should mention. So this happened during the Cold War, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And when I say the Pursuit of Truth radio show focuses on conspiracy theories that turned out to be true, I'm not like throwing out some tenuous connection in reality of like, oh, well, maybe it actually did. It was more probable than not that it did happen. This is based off of declassified government documents. So it is, I'm going to be doing conspiracy theories that irrefutably are verified to be true. So I just want to mention that because, I feel like that can be a little bit of a slippery slope for people. I'm trying to approach it the best way possible so that it is just fun. And, you might learn a little something interesting while you're listening to it. So next up, we got more sprites. As is tradition, we just have more sprites forever. Next. Now, I'm really happy about this one. The Cannon Shot arcade game. We have a second arcade game in the game. This was one of the ones that I had started to put in, and it just didn't quite work. And I didn't spend a whole lot of time on it before because I think I was delaying E1M4 a little bit. So I decided I'm going to put all the other arcade games off to the side, and I'm going to work on E1M4. So now that I've got the majority of E1M4 laid out, I figured why not? Have a little bit of fun with Cannon Shot. So, go into it. It is quite a bit harder than Armadillo Drop, but it is still very fun. You see we got our rotating cannon platform. We lock it in and it starts going up and down. And we lock in our elevation and then we've got our power meter. Lock in our power and it fires a shot.
Cannon shot. Well placed. The ramp is lit. Bonus target is up. The ramp is lit.
Oh, we were so close. Okay, so that's one of the things that I really want for the arcade games in this is that if you get good at them, then you can play forever. But they're just very hard. So Armadillo Drop has the increasing speed on the spinner. So that increases the difficulty there. Cannon Shot is just naturally very difficult. But it is extremely satisfying to hit these targets. And I'm kind of proud of it because I just came up with the concept in my head. You know, obviously I didn't invent the concept of a shooting gallery, but the whole system for it, I just came up with it out of my head, and it's turned out, I think, to be pretty fun. You can see my best score over there, 950. That's a far cry from Armadillo Drop here. So it is much more difficult, but I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm having a good time with it. I have had some instances, much like Armadillo Drop, where I have sat there going to test it, and I've sat there for about like 20 minutes just playing it. So I'm happy with it. I'm really happy to have Cannon Shot put into the game. I do have a Sinister Spirits game also planned and started. I ran into an issue with that before, so I originally made that first, and then once I ran into the issue, I made Cannon Shot. And this was back before I started E1M4. So I do have the base started for the Sinister Spirits game. It's a coin dropper game that I'm having a little bit of an issue in terms of the physics for it, and I think I mainly just need to size the cabinet up a bit. Like it might just be a cabinet that needs to go from floor to ceiling and just be thick. Because one of the issues that you wind up with Unreal is that when you with really small physics objects, if they get beneath a certain size, then they can start clipping through walls and stuff. So obviously, it's for a coin dropper, you really don't want your stuff clipping through. I had clipping issues with Cannon Shot initially as well, but I'm not actually sure what made it to where those issues just went away. But I've played a lot of Cannon Shot since, and it doesn't clip anymore. So that's nice. So yeah, we got Cannon Shot in. That is number 2. I want to get. Ideally, I'd like to have an arcade game per level. Now that's a lot. I don't know if I would have one in for the boss level, so that would be 7. I think 7 arcade games would be pretty fun. And I've got, if I can fix Sinister Spirits, then that'll be 3. So it'd be about halfway done. So who knows? I really have a lot of fun with these arcade games, and I think other people have a lot of fun with them too. So I really do want them to make an appearance at every level. Same with the radio shows. I have a lot of fun with this interactive stuff, so I would like to be able to get more in. So we will see. But for now, that is it for this update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I will see you guys next month. Have a good one, everyone.